This is Design Safe Radio, where natural hazards researchers strive to make our society more resilient to everything nature throws at us.
Join us for this special episode on the NHERI Science Plan.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Design Safe Radio. I'm your host, Dan Zahner, and here with me is my colleague from the NHERI Network Coordination Office, all the way from sunny Hawaii. We have Dr. Ian Robertson. Always good to see you and your fantastic self. It's just really great anytime we get to chat at all. So good to see you, Ian.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to see you too.
For those who aren't familiar with you and your work, can you give us a kind of a brief overview of what you do within the NCO and kind of outside as well? And then we'll talk about the science plan today.
Sure. So I'm a professor of structural engineering at the University of Hawaii. I hold the Arthur N.L. Chu Distinguished Professor seat, and I also serve on the NCO. My primary task on the Network Coordinating Office for NHERI is the development of a third edition of the science plan, the NHERI Science Plan.
Yeah, so this is not your normal science plan. It is a really big coordinated effort, lots of people involved. So can you give us an overview of what is the science plan? Why do we have a third edition now? And who all is on the team writing this thing?
Sure. So the NHERI does have two preceding science plans. First published in 2019, in 2017, I'm sorry. The second published, if I remember correctly, in 2020. The idea for the third science plan was the increased incorporation of three primary elements that were missing or at least less significant in the previous science plans. So the CONVERGE Center, which focuses on social science aspects of hazard mitigation, joined the NHERI community a couple of years into the formation of NHERI. And though they were mentioned in the second science plan, it was felt that a lot more of our engineering research should incorporate its effect on society, on the social implications that it has for the people who will be affected by our. The second was that the SimCenter, which focuses on developing simulation tools to aid in our estimation of damage or our simulation of the performance of different mitigation measures, etc. The SimCenter also started a little later than the other components of NHERI, and also took a while to get up to speed where they were actually producing tools that could be used. Now those tools are available. A lot of them are available. They're still developing more, but we wanted to focus and get more of those incorporated into the science plan so that researchers knew what was available. And the third component is that under CONVERGE, NSF has funded a number of extreme event reconnaissance and research networks. So, for example, GEAR, the Geotechnical Extreme Event Research Reconnaissance Network, has been around for decades, and modeled on their success, NSF wanted other EERs, as we call them, extreme event reconnaissance or research, EERs, to focus on other aspects of the consequences of natural hazards. And so we now have one for structural, we have one for nearshore events, we have one for industrial issues to do with social science, the SEER network. So there are 8 in all. There's a new one on public health, FEAR network. Those 8 were not mentioned at all in previous editions of the science plan. And so, and in fact, a lot of the ideas that come for new research in the hazards field actually come from the consequence of research, of reconnaissance after hazard events. That's where we see where the weaknesses are, the successes and the failures, and we can work to encourage the successes and to remediate or find ways where in future construction, we don't have the same failures. So yeah, those 3 components added to this third edition of the science plan was enough to convince us that it was necessary. In addition, We're adding effects of climate change, which obviously are affecting us in many ways. We're also encouraging a broadening of the scope of the NHERI focus. NHERI has focused typically on earthquakes, high wind events, hurricanes and tornadoes, and coastal flooding associated with hurricanes or storms, and tsunamis associated with earthquakes. And that was the scope of the natural hazards. We've changed the terminology to talk about atmospheric events, which would include the high wind and hurricane, etc. events, and seismic events. But the atmospheric would also include wildfires and flooding other than coastal, riverine flooding, urban flooding, high rainfall. All of those are affected by climate change. And so we've attempted in this third science plan to expand on the scope. And NSF is doing more in the way of funding and supporting wildfire research and interior flooding research. So I think we're moving in the right direction. So yes,
I agree. I agree. I mean, both of us are intimately familiar, unfortunately, with some of those new areas that NHERI is moving into research-wise of wildfires, that urban interface with wildlands. I mean, one island over from you had just had an extreme wildfire, and Oregon is now, and we just have wildfire seasons from July to October. It's just a part of life now, and tens of thousands of acres burned, and sometimes many more than that. And it's definitely an area that, I mean, over the years of being in NHERI, I'm sure you get this question a lot. Why isn't the NSF investing in wildfire research? And we've typically given the answer, well, that's another flavor of government money. We can't do that. But now the NSF has made some strides in that area, and we're happy to lead the way in the new science plan.
Lead the way, absolutely. Yep.